So welcome everyone. Now we're going to start our event. My name is Eliza and I'm Leadership Fellow at Women Who Code. Today's session is the Metaverse is here to stay. What does that mean? And I'm excited to welcome our amazing speakers today. And so I'll just run through the list. So we have Kristen Tam. She is a North America Metaverse Engagement Lead at Accenture. Her role is to spark change and enable teams to learn and know more about the Metaverse. Originally from Germany, Kristin now lives near San Francisco with her husband and 2-year-old son. She trains in, pronouncing this right, it's Muay Thai. I know it's like Thai kickboxing. And she's currently preparing for a 5K run and loves traveling, corgis, wine, and art. The next speaker is Carly Evans. She's a Metaverse change practitioner at Accenture, specializing in answering the question, why is the Metaverse a big deal for my people? That's a really great question. She understands change is hard, whether it's a new cell phone upgrade or wants to dictate changing technology like the Metaverse. And ideally, we have to approach adoption with the human and responsibility at the center. Carly lives in Houston, Texas with her husband, daughter, 2 dogs, and has plans to one day open a secondhand bookstore, maybe in the Metaverse. Our next speaker is Adesuwa Ehioghae. Adesuwa is a communications engagement analyst. She's currently helping to stand up the Metaverse Business Continuum Group within Accenture, and she's also helping with GTM engagement efforts. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia, but originally from Houston, Texas, where she graduated from University of Texas at Austin with a BBA in marketing. Outside of work, you can find her trying all the best foods around town, reading some scripts, or even competing within the Miss America organization. All right then, and I'll hand over the presentation to our speakers.
Great, thank you. I'll kick us off. Let me share my screen. Give me a second to set this up, and I think that should work. Actually, let me move this over here. Okay, can someone tell me, can you see my screen okay? Should be the title slide.
It looks great.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for the warm welcome and the introductions. I wrote that a few weeks ago, and it's a great reminder. I just thought about corgis. I really love corgis. Anyway, just to reiterate a little bit, my name is Kristen Tam. I'm originally from Germany, now in the Bay Area. I'm part of, or we are all part of Accenture's Metaverse Continuum Business Group. I'm probably, out of our group today, the person that joined the most recent. So I'm part of this group for the last 2 months. And then throughout my career, I'm very focused on change management. I'm a change practitioner. I've worked in talent strategy and mergers and acquisitions, digital transformations and things like that. And then recently joined this team around the Metaverse, the next big thing in my mind, and really drive engagement with our Accenture teams, making sure they, know and understand what the Metaverse is. They are excited about it, also gather feedback and have conversations with them around, what are the advantages and maybe what are the things that we need to still look into. So I'm very excited to be here today, and obviously, joined by my amazing teammates, Carly and Adesuwa, and I'll hand it over to Carly for if you want to add anything or just also introduce yourself, say hello.
Hi, yes, so Carly Evans. Kristen, thank you so much. It's hard to believe Kristen's been here for 2 months. I feel like Kristen's been here for like 8 months. And when you talk about Metaverse time, what is time at this point? So I've been doing a lot of organizational change, human adoption of technology for about 10 years now, specifically on the Metaverse side over the last year. And if you think about everything that has happened in just the last year in this space, it's pretty incredible to think about. I spent the majority of the past year rolling out VR and VR platforms to our own internal organization, our own people. We kind of called it the grand experiment, which Adesuwa is going to talk through that a little bit and our lessons learned and how, organizations are also starting to experiment with the same thing as they start to think about what's next for me, what's next for my people, what's next for my consumers, my customers, right? All of the above. So it's been a really amazing, exciting space, and is growing and changing quite often, as technology does. But okay, so and I actually say I am in Houston right now, as you can see kind of behind me, and it has finally, we've started to get a little bit of fall weather this week, and it's just been amazing. We've all been in hibernation for the last 6 months, so finally seeing all the neighbors I haven't seen in 6 months. But all right, Adesuwa, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to see that we have everyone from around the world joining for us for this conversation. That's so cool. Someone said they were from Atlanta or in Atlanta. I'm currently stationed in Atlanta, so kudos to you. Go Braves. I just started at Accenture at the top of this year. Prior to starting, I did intern and have primarily focused on change management efforts, and with Kristin joined within the past 2 months, learning all about there is to know about the metaverse, which has been a lot, might I add, but nonetheless, it's really cool. And I'm so excited to continue the conversation with you all.
Great, thank you. So again, what we want to talk about today, the metaverse is here to stay. That's the title that we decided to put together. And what does that mean? I think for me personally, as I'm getting more and more involved and immersed in this topic, it's really incredible to see how much is already out there, and how much we are like living the metaverse right now, and XR, VR, AR, AI, everything. Like it's literally here right now. So we want to talk a little bit about that. We have, if you think about the next hour, we have basically 3 parts that we've prepared. One is a little bit more context around what is the metaverse, what does that mean, where did it come from, where is it going? And then the next part will bring things a little more to life in the sense of here's what we've done at Accenture internally. And then the third part will go into how do we bring this to life to our clients and share some client examples. So to kick us off, taking a step back, we obviously represent Accenture today. So here's some statistics and some numbers to give you an idea of Accenture and sort of our workforce. We have over 700,000 employees worldwide. We operate and have offices in 200 cities across 50 countries. Our revenue that was just announced, I think, last year for the fiscal year 22 is over $61 billion. And then we're serving over 7,000 clients in over 120 countries. So this is to give you a little bit context of Accenture. And we want to, hear from you. We want to keep this like a conversation. We want to get your engagement. So we've built in some questions here and there just to hear from you. And so feel free to please write your answers in the chat. What comes to your mind when you think of the metaverse? Have you heard about the metaverse? What are, potentially buzzwords or definitions? Anything that immediately comes to your mind when you hear the word metaverse? I'm curious to hear from you. So please use the chat. We're looking forward to your answers. And I'll give you a second to central end. Yes. How difficult it is to explain to anyone. Yes. And how you potentially have to even shape it for different audiences in the way that you explain it and break it down, especially maybe to people who are not very tech versed. NFTs. Yes. Mixed reality, computer vision, gaming, Web3, yeah. NFTs again, great. Digital world, parallel world, augmented reality, an evolution of the current web. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, great. So, I think there's some understanding here of the metaverse and what it is. And thank you for sharing all this. So, what is the metaverse? And as with every emergent technology, there are many, many definitions of the metaverse, and they vary depending on who you ask. And someone said in the chat now, it's hard to explain because probably this is one of the things, because it is so new and emerging, there are so many different definitions depending on who you ask. So I've pulled together just a few quotes here, and you see, Microsoft's Nadella stated that it's about embedding computing into the real world and vice versa. Others like Nia Singh believe it's our virtual existence, so a lot more philosophical. And then Mark Zuckerberg of Meta thinks it's the next chapter of the internet. Accenture has a point of view as well, and that's the one that you see in that yellow box below, and it somewhat touches on all of these definitions. We believe it's an evolution of the internet. It's about participating and inhabiting, and that it spans across a spectrum of the real world and the virtual world and pretty much all the gray space in between. So talking about the evolution of the internet, and someone mentioned Web3, how did we get here? So we've gone through disruptive changes before, and we believe that right now the internet is currently being reshaped. And if we, go back to the beginning, in the 1990s, the internet was really about cataloging vast amounts of data, making them available across the globe. And then in the 2000s, it's the internet of people. So we connected people online. It started in early versions like GeoCities, communities, internet relay chat, and it grew into those social networks that we have today and that we're probably all part of. In the 2010s, our physical products became smart, and we call this the Internet of Things, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. So you tell your smart speaker that you'd like the vacuum to go clean the kitchen, and then your Roomba or whatever it is goes and cleans the kitchen, then brings itself back. And then in the last 2 years, under the context of Web3, 2 new internet offs have come to the forefront. The first one is the Internet of Place, heavily accelerated by the pandemic, as I'm sure you can imagine, maybe you've experienced. And so that's the idea that we can go to places that are entirely virtual, or we can bring virtual things into our physical space, and they can then stay there. So we saw a version of this with children's birthday parties in the pandemic, moving to platforms like Roblox. So they didn't go there to game, they actually went there to do other social activities, and they felt like they were there with their friends. So that's the Internet of Place. And then the Internet of ownership means that for the first time we can own a digital thing, often called a token. Someone or a few of you mentioned NFTs. And so that token is auditable, it's traceable, and we can have certainty of who owns it and what the history of that item is. So it's that additional transparency, I think, that comes with that as well. And for the first time, we see how the form and the function of the metaverse, which is that 30-year-old science fiction term from the book, that really comes to reality, and it's super exciting and very powerful as well. So the creation of the metaverse is enabled by the convergence of new technology capabilities, and you see a couple of them here. So AR, VR, extended reality, token, digital currency, digital twin, digital assets. So all of these different things will shape the future of the metaverse. However, there's also a lot of improper use that we see, or that our clients see across the market today. And it's essentially that these capabilities are, properly used and architected for. So many of our customers don't have architecture experience or deep knowledge of each of those capabilities. And it's a place where we can help them think that through and kind of bring those different elements together. So as the metaverse is being created and it's evolving, we believe that it will fundamentally shift and transform every aspect of businesses. And you see this little circle on the left, all the things that we believe will be impacted or changed. It's going to change the way that customers experience brands, the way companies educate or sell to them, and the way they service them after having sold something. There are new native digital or augmented physical products. So imagine in the future when you put up, you like previously, maybe you had to climb a ladder to put up your Christmas lights. And in the future, there might be an augmented reality version of holiday lights. And so you kind of created, virtually, and you don't have to climb up that ladder again, but you can still have a somewhat similar experience, or even an enhanced experience. It's going to change the way that companies make their products, aspects like payments, new payment rails, and digital currencies, and then also the question, what happens when money becomes smart? It's going to change the way we work, how we onboard our employees. I lost my train of thought here. And how we collaborate with our business partners. It's going to change how companies make products. BMW, the car manufacturer, is an example for that. They are designing factories and they're testing them in the metaverse before they are actually even physically building them. And we'll hear about a similar story later in the client examples. We'll have digital twins of the enterprise, changing how we track and how we manage entities within an enterprise, and that is going to extend into supply chain. And ultimately, it's going to change the way companies like Accenture, with our over 700,000 people, how we manage the diversity of our business. We can visit places virtually instead of physically. We can see what's happening there. We can talk with people. We can train our employees, and we can bring them new skills. And in that sense, it's really impacting the whole business, from start to end, and also how we think about it. I want to hear from you again. What are some of your experiences with virtual reality and or the metaverse? So have you been, have you experienced any of this? Have you been, exposed to it? So I can tell you, I think my very first experience with virtual reality was an art exhibition, which was 6 years ago. And it was an artist called Björk, and you would go into a room, and the room had chairs, and then you would put on your headset, and she would perform a song, and you would kind of observe it and then take off your headset and go to the next room. So it was just like a continuation of rooms, and each room had a headset, and it would kind of immerse you in that, in a particular experience. So I'm curious, please, write in the chat, what are some of your experiences with virtual reality and the metaverse? Do you have any of you, I know there's virtual conferences. So someone wrote they went to an NFT conference where they demonstrated how a concert looks like in Decentraland. Yeah, Pokemon Go is a very popular one. Yeah, the concerts are definitely something we're seeing. I think it was the Foo Fighters who, after the last Super Bowl, they gave a concert in virtual reality in the metaverse, I think last year. No experience so far. Okay. Anything else? I have worked on editing for a VR startup based in Russia, trying to translate the technical speak into understandable text for potential consumers. Yeah. Hologram singers at concerts. Yeah. I feel like there was the what's that K-pop band called BTS. I think they had a concert with the Coldplay singer. They have a song together, and I think they also brought them, BTS, the band, they brought them on stage as holograms instead of having them there physically. And then the Coldplay singer, Chris Martin, was there in person. That's pretty cool. All right. I think, again, I said that earlier, the metaverse is here to stay. I feel like there's more and more happening, and things like, Pokemon Go. And there's, if you think about Snap or Instagram, like where you have these filters, that also is, augmented reality or like mixed reality. All of these things, we have AI that is, everywhere. So I think for me, again, that learning or that realization is the metaverse is here, and yet its future is still to be determined. There are so many things that we don't know yet and that we're figuring out, and we're on this journey right now. Another question for you, a little pop quiz. Who owns the metaverse? Is it Meta? Is it Accenture? Is it Microsoft? Roblox? Not one entity or individual. Yeah, okay, everyone's, yeah, you obviously got it right. It's probably quite obvious, but not one entity or individual owns the metaverse right now. There's different companies that are creating the metaverse, and you see some of them on here. And then there's, many more. And I think the big question will be, what does that mean for the future? Are we going to have one metaverse where it all comes together, or is it going to be, several metaverses, several spaces that are all, managed differently? And so that's the big question that we don't have an answer to, and that, only time will tell. Okay. So as we're creating the metaverse, there's also a responsibility that companies have when doing that. So people always talk about feasibility and viability and desirability when it comes to new solutions, right? But responsibility for us at Accenture is a key component for metaverse solutions. We literally have a whole team that is, paying attention to those dimensions that you see here under that umbrella of responsible metaverse. Just because something is a good idea and could be valuable, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. So it really does require new frameworks around trust, like privacy, resilience, security, IPR, but then, which is the trust dimension, but then also the human dimension, right? Like, how do people feel safe? How can we make sure that happens? How do we know, or how do they know what's sustainable? And really everything related to well-being, inclusion, equity, accessibility. Those are all the questions that, we need to figure out. And I don't know that we have an answer to any or all of them right now. And so, again, these elements in our mind are very essential to build that trust for people into the metaverse, right? Okay, shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about Accenture in particular and sort of our vision, and giving you some examples of what we have done. And Accenture has been experimenting with XR for several years now. A big push happened in 2019 when we recognized that our teams across the world kind of go between in-person meetings or interactions and then 2D and 3D virtual moments. And then that was the moment when Accenture decided to create the AltSpace-based so-called nth floor as a virtual space for our people to engage with other colleagues in VR, and no matter where they are. And here's, some pictures, and to bring it to life, the nth floor is, if you will, Accenture's metaverse, which enables people to connect with anyone at Accenture from anywhere. And that includes digital twins of our physical offices. So for example, San Francisco, I think, or this might be New York, actually. And then as well as our new Giner campus, One Accenture Park, and we have a lot of more things. I'll hold my breath here because Adesuwa will bring this to life, so I'm not going to steal her thunder. What I will say is there were obviously a few things, a few initiatives that we took to enable all of that. So we had over 1,000 events using virtual reality, including 100 clients, and that I think is a number actually from July or August. So it's probably even higher. I think a big one that Accenture did was the headset deployment. We deployed 60,000 VR headsets in select markets via a pilot. So the US was, for example, one of them. I think the UK. So across the globe, we've deployed 60,000 headsets to Accenture employees. We have the onboarding in VR. Again, that's Adesuwa is going to talk to you about that in a second. But there's a new joiner experience in AltSpace VR, and we've you can see the numbers here. We've onboarded over 150,000 people so far in that environment. And then obviously the investment in training, both money and time. So those were quite significant. So again, this was the enablement of all of this, nth floor sort of a program or initiative. And I'll hand it over to Adesuwa to bring this to life and to share, some experiences and some examples of what that looks like.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen, for handing that over. Like Kristen was mentioning, Accenture has this new onboarding immersive learning experience where we take our new joiners through different portals and challenges, and also give them spaces to learn more about the company and what we all stand for. And luckily, like I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, I started with Accenture at the top of this year, and I had the opportunity to go through this experience. And the first thing I noticed was how much Accenture is willing to invest in in our people, especially us as new hires, especially coming out of the pandemic era where we didn't have that much human interaction with one another. So this is one Accenture Park where it's at the start of our careers, where we're learning to connect with one another of our peers, also learning how Accenture really drives solutions and the different examples and client examples specifically, how they've done that. So at One Accenture Park, new joiners are immersed into a virtual reality where we can have fun, but also learn. We were able to connect with one another, talk with one another through the little chat box and take pictures and selfies that we were able to share with our cohort at the end of the experience. And what I got from this and what I learned is that what Accenture really wants to do is just bring the human elements back to all of these different virtual reality experiences. So within this slide here, you'll see there's multiple images and visuals that showcase what it looks like when you're entering One Accenture Park. And having gone through it, I can tell you the images don't do it justice. Like, it's truly a cool, immersive experience. And this is my first time in virtual reality, and I did not expect it to look so expansive once I was actually in the space, and how I was truly feeling like I was able to interact with my peers who are also just starting out. It felt like we were all in the same room, which was really cool. So as new joiners, we were introduced with different challenges and solutions. One of those challenges were to help out a global coffee company who was having some issues. And then we were also giving tasks to search for a purple teddy bear, i.e. a scavenger hunt, which is actually where I met with one of my really good friends out of the Nashville office, and we're still good friends to this day. And I met him in One Accenture Park. So apart from that, we also have the Leadership Essentials portal. There's also the Skills and Specialization portal, and there's also a beach as well. And through all of these different spaces, it's just giving the new joiners the opportunity just to learn more about Accenture and what their future could look like at the company and now within virtual reality. And in the next slide, we're going to go into more about the space and design of things. So here we have the various offices that are in these virtual reality spaces. We have the New York office, the Chicago office. We also have the San Francisco office, where me and Kristin, when she first joined the project, we actually went into the San Francisco office, and she gave me a tour where she got her COVID test and everything. And it was just really nice. And I feel like it was a really bonding and honest experience more than anything. In our next slide is just more images about the type of events and meetings we have in the virtual reality spaces. There are town halls. I know earlier Kristin mentioned the arts exhibition that she went to. There's different Pride events. Then in the lower corner, you can see there's Accenture Winter Wonderland, where we possibly host holiday events. And within this slide, you can see how much can be done and can happen within these spaces. Just continue to, again, enhance that human experience. Accenture also really believes in investing in its employees' physical and mental health. And in doing so, they have provided the Supernatural app, where we can do boxing and yoga. Oh, that does sound really fun, Stephanie. Where we can do boxing and yoga in this wellness app. And I know one of the person who actually has done the Supernatural app, and she had one comment for me, and she was like, it's unbelievable. So I can't wait to have my turn in the app, but this is just one of the many ways that Accenture is trying to enhance the human experience within the virtual reality. And as you can see here, at Accenture, excuse me, sorry. At Accenture, we look to the future. We see immersive extended reality integral to the way people work. And by leveraging their laptops, mobiles, and headsets in tandem, they can achieve a truly connected and work experience. And lastly, if you really want to see what a day in the life looks like, here we have Katie. And also what this kind of slide shows, it kind of shows how work will change because of this new implementation of the virtual reality. For example, Katie wakes up in the morning, she has breakfast, check her messages, and then shortly after she logs into her email, captures some catch ups on some emails. Then she presents and have current oral demos in the headset. Then she goes walking, and then she finishes up her training in VR before she ends her day with a meeting with her career counselor and teams. And lastly, we're going to have Carly. I'm going to hand it over to Carly, who's going to give you more information about how vast this metaverse market truly is.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think it's so helpful to hear, your own personal experience in this space too, because especially as a new joiner, I said this at the beginning, well, you'll hear it a lot, our grand experiment of what does the future of work look like? So anyways, well, okay, so kind of moving on. Let's do a little bit more true or false here. So the metaverse market is expected to be $600 billion by 2024. $600 billion, true or false? True. True. Lots of trues. Okay, so, and this may seem surprising, we've even seen numbers at 800 billion. I mean, this is, we talked about at the beginning, how quickly this is changing and how much it is growing. And I would even say some of these numbers change often, but what we do know is it's big. We know it's coming. We know that it's going to touch, almost every part of the way that we work, we interact with our customers, our supply chains, digital twins, you name it. So 600 billion, yeah, more like 800 billion is what we're seeing right now, which is pretty wild. So we want to spend a couple of minutes too, just if you think about the flow of our discussion, we started with what is the metaverse, educating you so that, you can start to articulate some of this stuff that we know today. And then we talked a little bit about our own journey and how we're using it and experimenting with it. So now we want to transition to a little bit of what we're doing with other organizations and other parts of and other clients. So if we move on, Kristin. So this one was really, really cool. So this is an example of using virtual reality in this case, so totally immersive, for training, especially your high risk training. So we partnered with a utility company, and one of the things is okay, so let's think, put yourself in the shoes of a utility company, right? They inspect, they repair power lines. That's one of the things that they do. Well, one thing that came out of our discussions with them is oftentimes power lines that are sparking, transformers that are sparking are one of the leading causes of forest fires. And so they really wanted to make sure that any kind of transformer or power line inspections that their people do, they have to be really good at it, right? They really, really have to be good at it. And if you think about how we typically do training, right? There's web-based training, there's in-person training, and then on the other end of the spectrum is on-the-job training, actually being on that power line, right? So if you think about how can we create the almost like being there training, that's where immersive training really came into for this particular client. And so what we did was we essentially built as if you were there training where power line inspectors can inspect virtual power lines and also be introduced, whether it be a barking dog or weather or whatever it may be, the same types of things that they would experience actually being there, right? So if we look at, just to recap, right, we've got on the training spectrum, we've got your web-based, we've got your 2D watching a video, and then we've got your on-the-job training. This specific use case was that beautiful in the middle. How can we train people in a safe but super effective way, and one that's a lot less time consuming than actually getting on the ground too. So this is just one example of high risk training that we have seen, and that's going to continue to grow. I mean, we are doing everything from active shooter training to firefighter training, you name it. those high risk use cases are definitely something we could use immersive training for. So another use case, another example, some of you may even have seen this. We partnered with the Disney Studios Studio Lab to create interactive digital movie posters. So I wish we had the video. I know I've seen it, but where people actually get to walk in front of this movie poster, and it's like they're in the poster, like they're in the movie, which is pretty cool. So that's different, right? That's not totally immersive, but that's kind of that augmented reality, filter kind of part of this space, which was pretty cool. So if any of y'all ever see this is one of the things that we were able to do, which is pretty cool. So another different type of use case, this is for H&M, which I know most of you have probably heard about H&M. We partnered with their foundation, and we created a digital avatar, and we started to bring their sketches to life, and specifically brought 10 3D garments using a digital twin that we had built in CGI technology. So if you look at that upper left-hand corner, those are examples of avatars from scratch and designs that we brought to life in this kind of 3D environment. Part of what we also did was we built a lookbook too, featuring that design, which was pretty cool. So think about like totally immersive fashion, right? I mean, we're already getting there in so many of other places, whether it be using augmented to shop, but think about totally immersive shopping. It's pretty cool. So that's definitely different than the movie poster, definitely different than immersive training. And we've got one more use case we can talk about, which we partnered with Mars, and we did a digital transformation with them and built a digital twin, and established an innovation lab where they could think about how do we use these technologies to adjust our supply chain and be more responsive to the market, especially as they're creating these different products that we all probably enjoy in some way or another, since they are candy companies. So I'm gonna pause, because those were 4 different types of use cases. They hit on a lot of the things that Kristen talked about when we think about what is, this next wave of the internet going to impact. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of idea of what we're seeing being brought to life now, but also there's so much more to come here. So we can move on. All right. Yeah, I guess now we're at the point where we are right on time too with questions, which is great, believe it or not. So any questions? I see one: architecture and interior design use cases. Certainly. I mean, it's certainly, yeah. I haven't seen interior design specifically, but I may actually go back to Adesuwa, showed you a slide with our what we call space and design. So those were digital twins of our actual offices. We have used, we actually created a digital twin of our New York office. We call it 1 Manhattan West. We created a digital twin of that office before we even built it, before it was even complete. And so if you think about how we're using it for architecture, interior design, making decisions, even in real life spaces, we did that for one of our own offices. Underground mining, cave exploring in addition to construction. Actually, yes. So mining, we have something that we call it the connected mine, M-I-N-E, not M-I-N-D. So yes, we have certainly used it in those spaces. Everything from offshore oil rigs to we've used these things for, and usually, right, it's a combination of augmented reality, the HoloLens, and immersive, depending on what it is that we need it for. Any other questions?
Great questions, by the way, guys.
Yeah. What areas would you recommend as far as upskills, increasing knowledge in this area? So I will say, where we are right now is the convergence of multiple technologies. So I can't remember who said this at the very beginning of it's Web3 and it's extended reality and it's this and that. That is certainly the case. I mean, we are here because of AI, digital twins, edge computing, extended reality. It's the blockchain, right? It's the convergence of all of these things coming together. And so I think number one, yes, yeah, that's the perfect way to begin your understanding of all of these things are coming together very quickly and finally in a place that we can think about what this next fully immersive, connected world looks like, where we have digital identities, digital wallets, one digital identity that goes across all of these different platforms rather than one digital identity for each of these, right? So for sure, understanding a base knowledge of those, how it's coming together. And there's so much kind of Metaverse 101. There's podcasts, there's all kinds of stuff out there right now that I recommend. There's one specifically, and I will post it in the chat. And actually one of our colleagues runs it. It's a podcast. I will paste it in the chat, but that's a helpful one to start listening to. Okay. Use cases on sustainability, zero waste economy, and recycling. We actually built a pretty cool world right now. I was just chatting about it actually before this call with one of our clients, and it is a world where it's focused on the energy transition, and it's an immersive world where different companies can come together and talk to one another about where they are in their energy transition journey, connect with one another, learn from one another, but also see, right, effects of climate change, learn about energy transition, learn about what others are doing. And so that's an example of a collaborative space, all in the name of kind of what's next in the energy space, which is pretty cool. And I may stop. I feel like I'm answering a lot of these. So please, Adesuwa, Kristin, y'all feel free to jump in. Infrastructure worldwide ready for the metaverse to take the leap and how it will impact ecologically the planet. Valentina, that is an amazing question. We touched a little bit on responsible metaverse, Kristin did. And I think that's super key, because we have to think where we've come from, what we've been doing in the last 20 years. And certainly you would believe and know that we have learned a thing or two about technology and the impact it has on our planet and our people especially, and how do we create and design for a more responsible place in metaverse where we may not have done that or had the opportunity to do it over the last 15 years in other areas. And so that is everything from your security, your legal, your wellness, your safety, protecting our children, exactly, like the list goes on. But there is a huge effort across the board to design this metaverse responsibly and taking all of those things into account.
And I will also say that question, how can laws and regulations be done in the metaverse? And just like also some of those questions, around those elements that you see on the slide now. I don't know that we even have like an answer to those. And some of them we may have an answer, but it might just apply to parts and portions of it. So I don't know, how can laws and regulations be done in the metaverse is such a good question. But I don't know that we necessarily have an answer to that yet. Also knowing how many different players there are and, different players doing different things. Some are collaborating, some are, probably more focused on their own path. So I think that question, I feel like, I don't know that we have an answer to that yet.
Did we get through everybody's questions? Make sure you
I think so.
answer.
I think you've done a great job, Carly, following up on. I will also say that Accenture is hiring, especially in the metaverse space. So, like all across the board, different skills and different roles, from sales to more technical to like literally everything in between. So if you are interested, maybe Eliza, you can, or someone on the team can share our contacts, and you can reach out to us if you're interested.
Join us, everyone.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I can check with our leadership fellow for blockchain to share any of the hiring or contact info in their Slack. So yeah, looking forward. I don't think there are any more questions, but yeah, I agree. It's like, this was an amazing presentation. I feel like I've learned so much about the metaverse that I can like succinctly explain it to someone like who may not know anything about it or who may want to learn more to get involved. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your amazing talk and presentation today. Enjoyed like listening to all of you speak about the different parts and just like having a really interactive discussion throughout the slide deck. Saying,
Right.
What do you want to know about this one or that one? And yeah, these are great questions and great presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And I see that someone is going to join Accenture soon. So please feel free to contact us when you're with Accenture, or even, now that you're not. Someone is asking, are there any prereqs to get into metaverse? I guess it depends on what you're planning to do, right? Like, are you going to be on the technical side? Are you going to be on the sales side? So it really depends on what you want to do. But I know we're getting close to time, so I'm happy whoever asked that question, feel free to reach out to us to discuss further.
And it sounds like the metaverse is like always expanding. There's always new and different things to learn about. So the job like may not even exist yet. So
yeah, I'm sure there will be jobs that we don't know yet now.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I'll wrap up the presentation. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for our speakers on this Tuesday morning. And yeah, have a great October. Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.